Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is, of course, in continuation with Pakistan's resolve against terrorism and the kind of measures that the country is going to be taking moving forward. And in line of the recent surge in terrorist activities and the way that Pakistan is going to have to deal with this threat, we are also going to be taking a look in focus at what the Home Minister Balochistan has spoken about and has mentioned that the nexus between TTP and BLA is something that has been traced back to Indian involvement and the intelligence agency RAW that has been playing both of them against Pakistan's interests. And of course, this is something that Pakistan has previously also reiterated on many fronts, talking about the elements that have been coming in from within India and how Indian state-sponsored terrorism is making its way to Pakistan. And with the new evidence coming in, particularly, of course, with the TTP leader also being arrested and spoken about the kind of issues that have been taken place with regards to Pakistan and the way the planning was conducted and the involvement of different elements, including TTP and BLA, and then, of course, what it leads back to with the Indian intelligence agency RAW and the meetings that were held in the Indian embassy in Kabul with full support of the Afghan government is, of course, extremely disappointing and something, of course, that Pakistan has been putting forward to the world for quite some time now. And so the way that Pakistan is going to be dealing with the threat of terrorism within Pakistan is again something that will have to be dealt with both internally and externally as well in order to curb the menace of terrorism, to take into cognizance the role that is being played by India and, of course, the responsibility that is also shared by the Afghan Taliban regime. So we're going to be taking a look at this in our first segment and try and understand what needs to be done on ground and what a new light does this incident and the evidence that has come forward put towards Pakistan's own resolve and fight against terrorism. Our next segment, we're going to be taking a look at what has come in from the United States as well. And we also know that the House of Democrats has also spoken about Pakistan once again in a resolution that was passed by the majority. This is something that has been highlighted in a very bipartisan way, talking about how the US and President Joe Biden is being urged to making sure that democracy is upheld in Pakistan and that there is consistent alignment coming in from the US side to ensure that there is no such activities taking place, particularly also with regards to the 2024 elections in Pakistan against democratic values. Something, of course, that the Foreign Office has taken note of quite seriously and has said that this is something that reflects the US's poor understanding of Pakistan's democratic and political principles and culture, and is, of course, something that points towards the internal affairs of the country, and for something, of course, that Pakistan has been very seriously following. And the fact that the US letter is so baseless is also something that is going to again spark this confusion of US involvement within the country. And so we're going to also be taking a look at why this letter was presented in the first place and why it calls for the kind of measures that it does and the impact that it may or may not have on US President Joe Biden and the US foreign policy against Pakistan, and in light of course, our relationship with the United States and, of course, our relationship with other countries around the world. What does this mean also for the future and the perception that the people of America also hold towards Pakistan? So that's going to be our focus in the second segment of the show today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh K.Pitafi and Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online by Brigadier retired Mr. Nadir, who's a senior analyst, and we've also been joined by Mr. Shahid Rind, a senior journalist. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the discussion and joining us in the debate today. We're going to be taking a look, of course, at the kind of measures that Pakistan will have to take against terrorism. But I want to also understand, Brigadier Nadir, I'm going to start with you with reference to the kind of involvement that we have seen previously as well, and now what the Home Minister has also pointed towards that puts forward BLA and TTP together and uses this nexus against Pakistan's interests and the tracing back to India and the kind of planning and evidence that has come out. What do you make of this, particularly in terms of how Pakistan has always put forward this stance on international platforms as well, and what exactly will be the outcome of this role that India has been playing and the response that the international community will give it?
What is happening is geopolitical terrorism. from western border of Pakistan into Pakistan, sponsored by India, which is part of India's asymmetrical war. The geopolitical terrorism implies that it is terrorism motivated by geopolitical interest, that is India's geopolitical interest. And for that, they're using Afghanistan and even parts of Iran, maybe, that is the western border of Pakistan, the western regions of Pakistan. And it emanates from Delhi's oversized geopolitical agenda, which is to be a great power, a global power, well, which is quite delusional if you see it in the total context. But right now, focusing on this geopolitical terrorism, which you've talked about, it's aimed at destabilizing Pakistan, including that portion of Pakistan or west of the Indus River at least, which is also CPEC, which is also Gwadar, which is Balochistan, which is K.Pitafi, and a lot of that. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, Pakistan Army Chief General Sayyid Asim Munir has clearly stated and given a policy that in case of India's false flag adventurism, Pakistan will not just defend itself, it will strike back deep. And that is one reason that the Indians haven't come across on the eastern border. That's why they're using the western border of Pakistan. So Pakistan has pursued this policy of peace, and it is still pursuing, as you know. Recently also, Pakistan has made this overture to India for peace, and of course with Afghanistan it's been trying. But the fact of the matter is, realpolitik, or from the geopolitical perspective, India, that is Delhi and Kabul, are in collusion, geopolitical collusion against Pakistan. Well, you can debate, there's a long list why they are so and what are the reasons and all that, but the fact of the matter is they are together. And this attacks on Pakistan, regardless of the name of the organization, which is militant or terrorist outfit, because names keep changing, as you know, or can change. And there are, within the names, there are so many factions. I mean, it's not a single entity. They are all being not only sponsored, controlled, but supported. And India is supporting Kabul, and from there, they're giving this allowance or this capacity for them to operate against Pakistan, this terrorist organization. So this is Pakistan.
Absolutely. And Brigadier Nadir, of course, the statement coming in from TTP's Nasrullah also points towards the investment that India has put into it. And of course, this is not just in terms of planning and the kind of involvement that it has as part of the terrorist activities, but also in terms of financing terror activities. And so this has been an important front that Pakistan has taken up internationally as well, particularly with the FATF also, and has put forward this stance. And surely this is something that is being traced back to within India as well. And so what sort of implications will then it possibly hold with the FATF, and why not does this body actually take cognizance of the gravity of the involvement that India has in Pakistan?
Especially, Brigadier Nadir, when obviously we talk about the TTP leadership sitting in, of course, Afghanistan, Noor Wali, obviously Maulvi Mansoor or, Commander Nasrullah, he has categorically highlighted that Commander Mansoor, Noor Wali, he has been actually meeting with the ambassador and the diplomats of India sitting in Afghanistan. So this is something that is actually taking us to that direction too.
Yes,
Brigadier Nadir?
Brigadier Nadir, can you hear us?
The effort of Kabul and Delhi is quite clear now. So we should stop duping ourselves, and we have to be abreast of the geopolitics of 2024 and 25 and not the past. The fact is, regardless of the fact that for 40, 50 years, Pakistan has given succor to the Afghan refugees and largesse to the Afghan people and all that. You know the history of all that Pakistan has done to accommodate the Afghans. And we still are friendly to the Afghan people and the Afghan. The fact is that this is what is happening at the end of the day. So Pakistan has to deal with it. And the question is, what will the international community do about this? I have always said I'm chairman of PNR, Pakistan National Reform. I have always said, and I say it again right now, it is not, the international community comes later. What are you going to do? And one of the good things Pakistan did was it responded. I'm not only talking about military response, you have to respond in a national way. The first thing that has to be done is to create national consensus in Pakistan. If your soldiers are being killed, your young officers are being killed, it is the biggest national tragedy. The whole nation has to come together. It is not only the military's job. Of course, the military is forefront and will always fight as it is fighting. And it is duty to fight. But it is all of Pakistan which is being attacked, both by the Indians and the Afghans. So as a nation, we have to unite onto this subject. This is one.
Absolutely.
And then we have friendly subjects.
Important aspect that you have raised, and we'll talk about this further as well. We've also been joined online by Shahid Rind Senior, spokesperson, Balochistan government as well. Thank you very much, Shahid, for joining us in the debate. And I'll come to you with what Brigadier Sahib was also mentioning earlier. But before that, of course, the Home Minister has come forward with the evidence, of course, that points towards Indian involvement with both PLA and TTP. And while, of course, we talk about our fight against terrorism, it's very important also to be able to understand the nuances of the threat itself that exists. And I'm glad he also made this distinction between the people who have been misled and the ones who are actually involved in these terror activities. But on ground, when we are able to fight this menace, what sort of measures do you think will be taken to ensure that people are protected from being misled and that those who have been involved are brought to task? The arrests of course, two key commanders is brilliant in terms of putting forward this evidence and the fact that this connection has been drawn. But what steps are that lie ahead that are needed and that need to be accomplished to making sure that we're really coming to the root of the problem?
Thank you for having me in your show. First of all, as you said, this arrest is very important, and this proves the one thing. Our security officials and our intelligence agencies are working day and night to restore peace and prosperity in Balochistan and Pakistan in general. So this arrest shows one thing: they are keeping an eye on those all elements who are trying to destabilize peace and prosperity in Balochistan and Pakistan. Which important thing highlights in the today's press conference, there was a one thing which any terrorist organization, either it's a religious or a liberal, they have a common agenda to destabilize peace and prosperity in Pakistan and to target Chinese and CPEC projects. So this is showing how our neighboring country is used against us from the Indian raw. That is another proof after Kalboshan. So I think this is the good chance with the Pakistan's Foreign Office as a spokesperson, government of Balochistan. I believe, and we believe, government of Balochistan, Foreign Office must take up this video and this confessional statement of the arrested commander with the neighboring countries, especially China and the other brother Islamic countries in the Middle East and some Western countries, to establish the narrative which we have still Afghanistan's land is used against Pakistan in the terrorist activity. So I think this is again the chance to expose the nexus of Indian and the Afghan authorities.
About of course, if you talk, Commander Nasrullah, he has highlighted one fact that sitting in of course Afghanistan, TTP leadership and BLA leadership, they are hand and glove, and what is being dictated to them by their handlers sitting in New Delhi, of course raw, they want them to make bases, terrorist bases in Khuzdar. How important is this fact? And of course Khuzdar is present in your province. Why Khuzdar is quite significant for them?
And Rind Sahab, could you also add to this question one bit that was missed by my dear friend here, and that was that all of this is happening with full support of Afghan government. How is Pakistan going to confront the government of Afghanistan? Of course, without its complicity, nothing can take place.
First of all, as you mentioned, this is the very clear fact which was in our knowledge, our intelligence agency's knowledge, who is sitting in Kabul and how they are operating here. But our stance gets the validation from the arrested commander's confessional statement, number one. Number two, you asked why Khuzdar is important. Khuzdar is important because it's a center point between Karachi and the Gwadar. The strategic value of the Khuzdar in Balochistan is very important. As we discussed, the strategic value of Gwadar port in the Arabian Sea, same is the story with the Khuzdar, that is center point between two ports, Karachi and Gwadar. And it connects Sindh and Punjab with the same destination, with the same kilometers as it connects Gwadar and Karachi.
Regarding Afghan government's support, do you think that the government of Pakistan is going to confront Afghan Taliban with this evidence?
job of Foreign Office. Government of Balochistan may take up this issue with the federal government and the Foreign Office. Then Foreign Office may take up this issue with the Afghan authorities.
A very important question about the missing people. One of the statements which is coming from Commander Nasrullah is that majority of the missing person that are being highlighted in Pakistan over social media everywhere, they are actually sitting in Afghanistan. What do you make out of it?
And Rind Sahab, I understand that the federal government, of course, is going to be responsible for taking this up with the Afghan government. But I want your take on what sort of an angle do you think that Pakistan should be taking on this front, given the history that we have seen. We've reiterated to the Afghan Taliban regime plenty of times that they need to step up and they need to make sure that the terrorist havens are not provided, that they're not complicit with terrorist activities in Pakistan, and that they are able to provide the security that their territory is not going to be used against Pakistan. And in light of what Pakistan has already reiterated to Afghanistan, what should be our next steps in your opinion?
What should be the next? It will be decided, I think, on the federal government's level, or the our security officials can decide what can be next. In my opinion, there is a there are few incidents when we responded. It was one with the Afghan side when they violated our border. Our security forces responded very well, and one was from Iran a few months back. So I think what should be the response? This is not the domain of provincial government of Balochistan to decide it. This is the domain of federal government and the defense institutions and our armed forces. They can decide what should be our response.
Yeah. What about the missing people, sir?
On the missing person phenomenon, there are many stories. There is a conflict on the numbers of missing persons between the families and the government. But still, Missing Persons Commission is working, and whatever the details coming in the knowledge of Missing Persons Commission, they are working on it, and many people released in these months.
Yeah. Can we expect from the government of Pakistan to, of course, give these lists, take these lists from the people on ground and give it to Taliban regime so that they can find them people? Because now we have an evidence from Commander Nasrullah. He is actually highlighting that majority of the missing people are in Afghanistan. Can we seek them from Afghanistan Taliban regime?
I think, again, this is the subject of Ministry of Interior and Ministry of Defense on federal government level. But our provincial police, which arrested this commander, if they feel they want someone from Afghanistan, so I think for getting any important commander from Kabul, that is not a job of provincial government. That is job of federal government.
Sir, can you also add to what the provincial government stance is on the Azm-e-Istikam that, of course, the Prime Minister has recently announced? And, of course, this is a renewed resolve and an increase in activities against terrorism, and, of course, putting forward this essence of making sure that we all are on the same page regarding terrorism. Are we? And what really is the stance of the provincial government on the matter?
And Shahid Saab, let me clarify one point. We understand that it is essentially the federal government's call how to actually approach Afghanistan and approach these matters. But as a worthy guest who has been participating in our shows earlier as well, even before you were with the government, I kept on actually benefiting from your analyses. So right now what we want to hear from you is the voice of government of Balochistan, what arguments or what stances it is going to take, especially while approaching the federal government.
I think our position is very clear in every meeting of Apex Committee meeting. That is a forum where national leadership from all provinces and the armed forces will be present there. If I'm again saying, if our counter-terrorism department or the Balochistan police believes they need someone who is in Afghanistan and they want him back here, how can we approach Afghan government? That is the only, I think the option is to talk with the federal government, take up the issue, and they will talk with the Afghan authorities. But the question is, Afghan authorities will accept our demand? I think answer will be no. Because if they accept our demand, then why they allow someone to use their soil against us? Number two. Number three, she was asking a question which I missed. If she repeat it again.
Yes, Sir, she is Sana, and I will just repeat what I had said earlier. The aspects with regards to Azm-e-Istikam is really important. And of course, this is something that Prime Minister has recently announced and needs the resolve and consensus of all the political parties and the provincial governments as well, to making sure that we're fighting the issue of terrorism on the same page. I want your stance on whether the Balochistan government is actually on the same page on this matter, and what is their perspective or stance on Azm-e-Istikam.
First of all, here is a government which is a People's Party-led provincial government, but it's a coalition government, People's Party and PMLN. Few days back, President Asif Ali Zardari was on visit in Quetta, and he very clearly instructed provincial government to handle the situation in Balochistan. We have a clear policy, as we have in past in Sawat. 3D means dialogue, deterrence, and development. Currently, after the Apex Committee, Chief Minister Balochistan Sarfraz Bugti is very clear on his stance about Operation Azm-e-Istikam, and he believes to maintain the law and order situation in Balochistan, it's necessary to support this operation, which is under discussion on the level of federal government.
Right, but of course, essentially, it is also not just an operation, and what the Prime Minister, of course, clarified also is the resolve that is important. And so we were, of course, also taking a look at the National Action Plan and the non-kinetic aspects of it, and the kind of issues that need to be resolved in order to prevent the current state of affairs and the spike in terrorist activities in the future also, while we, of course, fight terrorism on ground. And so what sort of measures do you think that the Balochistan government is ready to or can plan to take in the future with regards to capacity building, with regards to reforms, with regards to improvement in judicial systems within the province?
Presently, our government is trying our level best to work on the strengthening of our levies and police forces, which are first-tier forces who respond any kind of situation. Other than that, we are working on the legislation of prosecution department and law department, which is pending from years. So we are trying our best to improve our prosecution and the law department as far as levies and police concerned, and the counter-terrorism department. We have allocated a huge chunk of money for the strengthening of counter-terrorism department.
Yeah, Rind Saab, when we talk about, of course, BLA leadership, especially Majid Brigade's Bashir Zaib, he is being highlighted as sitting inside Afghanistan. Once more, I know that you are going to say that this is something that federal has to ensure, but you as a provincial government, of course, he is someone who's wanted by Balochistan as a province as well. What kind of modus operandi you are going to apply to get him back in Balochistan and present him in front of the cleaners?
I think the only modus operandi currently we have to approach federal government and demand this thing. Otherwise, provincial government have no space to act anything outside the border. So every step we have to take in, we must go through for federal government. Otherwise, provincial level, we have no space for this.
Absolutely, I can understand that, but of course the onus also is on the provincial governments for a lot of these matters, and I want your take also on the CPAC project phase 2, of course, that is going to move ahead, and of course Pakistan is going to benefit greatly from this as well. But a concern that has remained in the past also has been the security of Chinese officials, and even now we've seen that this is something that has been voiced, and of course needs utmost attention, since of course it benefits Pakistan, of course particularly Balochistan as well. So I want your take on what sort of measures do you think need to be put in place, and what role the provincial government is playing in order to ensure that the protection and security of Chinese officials and CPEC projects exists?
I think in last Apex Committee meeting, as far as my knowledge is, this issue was taken on the Apex Committee level, and the federal government decided to provide foolproof security to all the projects where Chinese are working. We have our levies. In levies, we have some dedicated force for CPAC projects, but they are in the second or third tier of security. The main tier of security is with Frontier Corps.
Right. Shahid, let me also ask you something about National Action Plan, particularly a revised National Action Plan. one of the important targets is to disrupt terrorist finance. And I understand that the provincial government is doing an incredible job of actually busting all the terrorist cells that might exist. But do you have any fresh information regarding money trails that might have been empowering these elements sitting inside Pakistan, particularly in your province, who actually go out and disrupt development activity?
Unfortunately, I think we have lost Shahid Saab. Brigadier Nadir, are you still with us? Brigadier Nadir, can you hear me? I believe both of our guests have left, but thank you very much for joining us, Brigadier Nadir, and also Shahid Rind Senior for being part of the discussion and speaking to us length about the issues surrounding terrorism and the role that Pakistan will be playing in this regard. And Farrukh, I want your perspective, taking in from the discussions that we've had with Shahid Rind Senior, the role that we can expect the provincial governments to be playing in this very important issue, because of course when we talk about the resolve against terrorism, what the Prime Minister has reiterated, and if we are really truly to move forward with Azm Istikam, what sort of then aspects will the provincial governments also have to take up, and the responsibilities that exist in terms of the coordination and consensus that is needed on the matter, and whether or not that can be something that is achieved by both the provincial and the federal government.
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the question. I think that what has happened today, particularly this press conference, and the evidence it has presented deserves congratulations. Balochistan government actually deserves congratulations, and the law enforcement agencies in Pakistan and the federal government for doing two things. One, not only nabbing such elements, because that is very important, they would have actually disrupted some activities somewhere in the country. The second thing is that, remember yesterday when I was talking about consensus building, and I said that maybe it is not that easy to convince all political forces because some of them might be complicit. So what is the best way to actually approach the subject? Bring together all the best arguments that you have, sort of FAQs, and then use media to reach to the common people on the ground, because through them, of course, when you build consensus, then the politicians are also under pressure to listen to their own voters. So I think today the government of Pakistan, government of Balochistan killed two birds with one stone, and for that they deserve to be congratulated. Having said that, now how do we progress from here? I think that the particular bit about the new vision, right, that Azm Istikam that you mentioned, that is very important because it is going to emphasize the need to actually make progress on all the important aspects of National Action Plan, the revised version, that was not actually built. So we have to actually take care of that as well. Finally, I have to rub it in, Sana. Remember when Afghan Taliban were taking over and people were cheering, and now whatever I was saying has been actually proven. So they say that there are two tragedies in life. One, not to get your heart's desire. The second, to get it. And particularly, let me mention another government that people, some of our friends kept on recruiting for, and that is Narendra Modi's government. So now it is in power again, and this is the government that actually started all of this. So I think that they deserve to live with the consequences of their choices as well.
Right.
You got what you wanted. So now live with it.
Absolutely. We're now going to be taking a look at our next segment, which focuses on what has come in
one
from...
liner.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, one liner was, there was one aspect of this, important presser in which, of course, Commander Nasrullah, he highlighted that TTP is not TTP anymore. It is actually TTM, which is Tehreek-e-Taliban Masood tribe. Reason being, he has categorically said that all of the top positions of TTP are actually taken up by the Mahsoods, and they are not the ones who are being sent to do activities, terrorist activities, whereas the other, they are the ones who are being sent. So what he meant was that the Noor Wali would never send his 9 sons to, of course, wage a war or wage a holy war, but he would be sending sons of the poor sort of people around him, and that is what is taking place. So to me, I think it is fast becoming TTM, which is Tehreek-e-Taliban Mahsood tribe, and that's what it is all about.
जो चाहे आपका उसने करिश्मा साज करे. You see, I think that we are living in a world of magical realism, where our mind actually goes out of the way to miss the point while hitting the target, and that is something that you have to look at. Of course, we can call it TTM, we can call it TTP, TT whatever, but the fact is that TTA and TTP together, thanks to this testimony, are working in tandem to uproot Pakistan's government and to destabilize the country. If we don't want to see the complicity, if we don't want to see TTA, then of course we can keep on, hair splitting. But the fact is, who is doing what.
Right.
And even if after that I'm going to actually reinvent the wheel, I can.
Right, absolutely. We're now going to be moving on to our next segment and taking a look at what has been going on from the US with reference to, of course, the letter that has come forward from the House of Democrats, and of course the one that pushes forward the Biden administration to talk about the affairs of Pakistan, especially in terms of democratic values that apparently, according to the letter, are under threat, and that investigations need to be also made with regards to the 2024 elections in Pakistan. Of course, the Foreign Office has taken serious note of this and has also once again said that this is something that reflects the US as lack of understanding of Pakistan's political dynamics. And Faisal, I'll start with you with reference to seeing this particular letter. It's not the first time that we've seen something of the sort coming in from the US, and of course it's not the first time that Pakistan is responding to it. But again, while one may argue that this carries little weight or impact in terms of US foreign policy or the decisions that the Biden administration is going to take, it of course symbolizes and signifies something, a sentiment that is coming in from the House of Democrats that has passed this through a majority. And I want your perspective on the effect that that actually creates both within the US and of course in Pakistan.
Yes, Sana, it's a very good question, and since obviously during the day as well, I've been going through this letter, and then whatever was being discussed even on social media as well, the statements I was going through, I kept on thinking whether I should be calling it halal interference or some interference which should not be made, because we know that of course previously we have been highlighting.
What exactly is the distinction you're making? What kind of interference is halal or approved or endorsed in any way?
You could have called it. Hang on. You could have called it kosher, but you had to go with halal.
Yeah, kosher. What has been happening obviously for last 2 years is that there was one political party that has been, of course, highlighting the interference of Americans in Pakistan's politics in the other context, and now when they are, of course, interfering once more, because it is an internal matter of Pakistan. It is understandable that always US, efforts are being put towards maintaining democracy throughout the world, and that is how they do. But there are certain elements which even in US are questionable as well. If you come across with a Trump supporter, he would always say that the current regime or current government of Biden, to him it is not a legitimate government at all. Reason being that they always raise question marks on the previous election through which, of course, Joe Biden became president. So in this case, that is their personal matter, and that is why we don't highlight that in our show. Or our government never criticizes Biden administration at all on this matter, because this is entirely their own internal matter. And when it comes to Pakistan or democracy of Pakistan, of course, if these kind of statements are coming from US, through a prism of maintaining democracy throughout the world, and of course Pakistan being a country, a former ally of Pakistan, of US, and they want to make sure that democracy is persisting in Pakistan. Yes, there is democracy. Pakistan is being run by constitution, Pakistan's own constitution. Yes, there are allegations of rigging in this election as well, but they are being dealt by
but
our
allegations
honorable
of rigging
institutions.
don't point towards lack of democratic values.
Well, they are just pointing out that somehow the current government or the current setup is the product of the elections which are having lots of question marks over it. Well, same can be said for US as well. If we come across,
democracy allows that space.
Yeah, allows that space, and that is why I was raising this question, that this letter coming from US at this hour, it sounds very odd to me, because knowing, and the people who were actually highlighting this letter again and again, they were the very people who had raised questions previously 2 years ago, when they have been highlighting this notion that America actually interfered in Pakistan's internal politics, and the regime change took place. I mean, if it was wrong then, it is wrong now.
Right.
If it was something that was an interference then, it should be an interference now as well.
All right. Farrukh, I want your perspective also in terms of the value that this letter holds, and why do we see such letters coming in the first place, and whether or not there is any question of evidence or accountability that can be put forward with the US, or whether this letter even merits that to that level that Pakistan actually puts forward this concern with the Biden administration. And if not, then what can be the case that is made for anyone, be it the House of Democrats, to actually come forward with something without any evidence and claim and make statements against a country's internal affairs and sort of get away with it?
House of Representatives, that is. Correct.
Yes, House of Representatives.
Yeah, but you see, I'm equal part, flattered and saddened. Flattered, not flattened, by the way. Flattered because Pakistan seems to be this insignificant, pardon my saying this, but you'll realize what I'm saying, insignificant sideshow to the dumpster fire that is going on in India, right? In their elections, they not only arrested two senior party leaders, right? They also forbade many people from actually taking part in elections in one way or the other. They froze the money or the accounts of the main opposition party, and they have been using all the methods that dictators use. And out of that, America, a country that of course should be worrying about bigger things like India, actually their house actually comes up with this resolution and this letter. I mean, I don't know how did they find the time. Of course, when it comes to flattering part, of course, they are also supporting the idea of democracy. On the face of it, it is good. But then they have actually crammed into it all the indictments that could have been there. The concern again is that John Oliver only a few days ago came up with a segment on what American conservatives are doing to America's own democracy, and the way the plans they have to actually subvert their constitution when if Trump actually gets re-elected. And that is when the lawmakers of the world's most powerful democracy are obsessing about a country called Pakistan. So what a strange kind of circumstances that must be. I think that this actually shows, again, victory of India's lobbying efforts. On one side, of course, India keeps on deflecting its own attention from itself. I had said it before the election that all this focus on Pakistan and Bangladesh is to normalize whatever is going to happen in India. And this is exactly what has happened. Now nobody actually says that India's elections was subpar. Why? They, of course, conceded some ground to the opposition, but immediately, today, you know, when the leader of the opposition was nominated as selected, immediately they got summons from the courts that they are going to be actually subjugated and perhaps interned for 1 year.
Right.
With that kind of situation, if America, the world's most powerful democracy, needs to worry about, obsess about some country called Pakistan, it is their choice. But honestly, I should also take our own guys to task. Why is it that our side was not able to lobby it properly?
Absolutely.
This kind of number actually shows some kind of failure in diplomacy, and we have to take stock of that as well.
Yeah,
Right.
But it doesn't actually change anything because it is not binding. And secondly, it is a bigger indictment of Biden administration than Pakistan's.
Yeah. Yes,
Right,
Sana,
very quickly,
one
yes.
liner very quickly. You know, more than 35,000 people died in Gaza, and most of them, of course, kids, elderly, and women. They died, and we saw that no one came up with this kind of resolution in, of course, American Senate, and this humane Senate did nothing to save people in Gaza. Other aspect of it is that they have been constantly supporting Israel and Netanyahu's government to have the carnage going on in Gaza.
No. Don't actually, you know, normalize this. Whatever is happening in Israel is something that should actually find bigger voice everywhere. But honestly, when you talk about this region, let us stick to that. India, bigger problem. Their democracy more rotten. Their institutions totally decimated. And you find time to blame Pakistan for whatever is happening. Don't normalize by actually bringing other cases, because India is a case study. When you can ignore, when you can have that big a blind spot, then you don't deserve to have any, you know, any leeway regarding Pakistan.
Right. Thank you so much, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us. As always, as part of the debate, that's all that we have time for. We're now going to see you tomorrow.